The boardroom felt like a stage, and Eliza Morgan was the only one who knew the real script. "I'd like to introduce the representative from Horizon Capital, who's been our primary investor since we launched 6 months ago," Nathan said, his voice carrying that charismatic timbre that had once made her heart race. Now it just made her stomach tighten. 12 faces turned expectantly toward the doorway. Eliza took a deliberate sip of water, watching her husband over the rim of her glass. Nathan's tailored navy suit matched the one she'd bought him for their anniversary last year, before everything changed. Before she found the messages. Before she discovered their joint savings had been depleted. Before she realized the startup he'd been pouring himself into had a co-founder he never mentioned at home. "Ms. Reed sends her apologies," Eliza said, setting down her glass. "As Horizon's operations director, I'll be sitting in for her today." Nathan's smile froze. Across the table, Valerie Chen, creative director, co-founder, and her husband's mistress, straightened imperceptibly in her chair. Neither of them recognized her. Not yet. The auburn hair dye, colored contacts, and carefully applied makeup had transformed her appearance just enough. To them, she was merely Caroline Wells, the intimidating representative of their primary investor, not Eliza Morgan, the wife who'd been betrayed twice over. "I've reviewed your quarterly projections," Eliza continued, sliding a folder across the polished mahogany table. "And we need to talk about some adjustments." Nathan cleared his throat, shooting a nervous glance at Valerie. "We were under the impression Ms. Reed was pleased with our growth." "Ms. Reed isn't here," Eliza replied, holding his gaze. "And I find your numbers creative." For 6 months, she had been the silent partner in more ways than one. Now it was time for the performance review. 8 months earlier, Eliza traced the rim of her wine glass with her fingertip, watching as Nathan paced their living room, gesturing animatedly about market penetration and disruptive technology. At 43, her husband still had the passionate energy that had drawn her to him 15 years ago, his dark hair just beginning to gray at the temples in a way that made him look distinguished rather than old. "It's perfect timing." "Liz," he said, using the nickname only he was allowed to use. "The market's primed for this kind of platform. We've already got interested clients lined up." "It sounds promising," she said, meaning it. Nathan had always had good business instincts. It was why he'd risen to senior vice president at Lancaster Media before resigning 3 months ago to pursue this venture. "But using our entire savings? That's a big risk, Nate." He sat beside her on the sofa, taking her hands in his. "The biggest risks bring the biggest rewards. Remember when we bought this house? Everyone said it was too expensive, but now it's worth twice what we paid." She smiled at the memory. "That was different. We both had steady incomes then." "I know this is a lot to ask," he said, his green eyes locked on hers. "But I need you to trust me. 6 months, a year tops, and we'll be more financially secure than ever. I promise." Eliza studied her husband's face, the face she'd woken up to for 15 years, the face she'd seen light up when she told him she was pregnant and crumple when, 3 months later, she lost the baby. The face that had never lied to her, or so she'd thought. "Okay," she said finally, "but I want to be involved. I have expertise too, you know." Nathan's smile faltered slightly. "Of course you do, but you've got your hands full with the foundation. This will be intense for a while. 14-hour days, weekends. I don't want to drag you into that." "I can handle it," she countered. "My background in finance is exactly why I need you holding down our personal finances while I focus on this," he interrupted gently. "Please, Liz, let me do this my way. I need to prove to myself I can make this work," she relented, as she usually did when he appealed to her this way. Nathan had always been the dreamer, the risk-taker. She was the practical one, the planner. It had worked for them, until now. "Fine. But promise me you'll be transparent about how things are going. No surprises." "No surprises," he agreed, leaning in to kiss her forehead. "We're partners in everything always," she believed him. That was the first mistake. The changes were subtle at first. Nathan working later. The decreased intimacy. The vague answers about meetings and clients. Eliza attributed it to the stress of the startup. Nathan had always thrown himself completely into new projects. She tried not to take it personally when he missed dinner again, or when he started sleeping in the guest room to avoid waking her when he came in late. Then came the weekend business trips. The decreased communication. The password on his laptop that hadn't been there before. "You're being paranoid," her friend Diane told her over lunch. "Nathan adores you. He's just in that startup tunnel vision." Eliza nodded, wanting to believe it. But something felt off, a discordant note in the symphony of their marriage that she couldn't ignore. It was a Tuesday morning when she found the first concrete evidence. Nathan had left his phone charging while he showered, a rare oversight. The notification that flashed on his screen was innocuous. Meeting changed to 10 a.m. But the name attached to it wasn't. Val. She'd never heard Nathan mention anyone named Val. Eliza hesitated only briefly before picking up the phone. The passcode was their anniversary, another oversight. The messages loaded and her world tilted on its axis. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Last time was incredible." Sent yesterday at 11:23 p.m. when Nathan had claimed to be at a client dinner. "Miss your hands on me." Sent 3 days ago, with a response from Nathan that made Eliza's cheeks burn with shame and rage. She scrolled further, each message another knife twist. Then a different kind of message caught her eye. "Peterson is interested. If he invests, we're looking at another $200K in the first round. That puts us at 1.2 million total, enough to scale faster than we planned." Business messages. Between Nathan and his mistress. About their company. The shower turned off. Eliza quickly replaced the phone, her mind racing. Nathan emerged from the bathroom, towel around his waist, and smiled at her as if nothing was wrong. "Morning, beautiful. Sleep well?" She forced herself to smile back. "Fine. You're meeting with Peterson today, right?" A flicker of something, surprise, worry, crossed his face before his expression smoothed. "Yeah, this afternoon." "How did you know?" "You mentioned it yesterday," she lied smoothly. "Good luck," Nathan nodded, seemingly relieved. "Thanks. Don't wait up tonight. It might run late." "Of course," she replied, already knowing where and with whom he'd be running late. After he left, Eliza sat at their kitchen island, hands trembling around her coffee mug. Betrayal wasn't a strong enough word for what she felt. Nathan hadn't just cheated on her. He'd built a new life that completely excluded her. The company he'd spoken of with such passion, that he'd invested their joint savings in. It wasn't just his. It was theirs. His and Val's. Her first impulse was to confront him, to rage and throw things and demand answers. Her second was to call a divorce lawyer. But as the initial shock began to fade, a different kind of clarity emerged. Nathan had taken her money, their money, to build a business with his lover. If she confronted him now, what would she get? A messy divorce. Possibly half of whatever assets remained after he'd plundered their accounts. Emotional satisfaction, perhaps, but at what cost? No. There was another way. Eliza opened her laptop and typed a search. Prometheus Digital Solutions. Nathan's company. The website was sleek, modern, and there they were on the About Us page. Nathan Morgan, CEO, and beside him, Valerie Chen, COO and co-founder. Beautiful, at least 10 years younger than Eliza, with a biography that listed impressive credentials in digital marketing and user experience design. They made a handsome couple in their professional headshots. Eliza wondered if the photographer had caught the lingering glances, the secret smiles. If anyone at their company suspected the true nature of their partnership. Further down the page was a smaller note. Prometheus is proud to be backed by Serenity Ventures and private investors. Eliza picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in years. Meredith Reed speaking. "Meredith, it's Eliza Morgan. I think I've found something you might be interested in investing in." Meredith Reed had been Eliza's roommate at business school before becoming one of the most successful venture capitalists in the city. They'd drifted apart over the years as their lives took different directions. Meredith building her empire, Eliza stepping back from corporate finance to run a nonprofit foundation after her miscarriage changed her priorities. So, let me get this straight, Meredith said, stirring her martini with elegant fingers adorned with a single platinum band. They sat in a private corner of an upscale restaurant where they were unlikely to run into anyone who knew Nathan. Your husband emptied your savings to start a company with his mistress, and you want me to invest in it? When put like that, it sounded insane. But Eliza wasn't insane. She was calculating. The company actually has merit, Eliza explained. Their platform streamlines digital marketing for small businesses using AI integration. They've already secured several high-profile clients. Meredith raised a perfectly arched eyebrow. And you know this how? I've been doing my homework. Also, Nathan talks in his sleep. Another lie, but a necessary one. That still doesn't explain why you want me to invest in your husband's love nest. Eliza leaned forward. Because I want controlling interest. I want to be involved in every decision. I want to know exactly what they're doing with my money. And when the time is right, I want them to know exactly who they've been answering to. A slow smile spread across Meredith's face. You always were the quiet one in school. I never saw this vengeful streak. I'm not being vengeful, Eliza countered. I'm being strategic. Nathan took our joint savings, money I earned too, to build this with her. I deserve to protect my investment. And the fact that you'll be secretly controlling your husband's affair partner is just a bonus? Meredith's tone was light, but her eyes were shrewd. Eliza didn't bother denying it. Will you help me or not? Meredith considered her for a long moment, then nodded. Horizon Capital can make an investment through a shell corporation. But you'll need a new identity for interactions with the company. And Eliza, her expression grew serious. Are you sure this is what you want? It would be cleaner to just divorce him. Cleaner, yes. But not more just. Eliza took a sip of her wine. I want to see exactly what he's built with our money and her talents. Then I'll decide what happens next. It took 3 weeks to set everything up. Meredith created Horizon Capital as a special investment vehicle, with Eliza installed as operations director under the name Caroline Wells. A skilled makeup artist, recommended by Meredith, helped Eliza develop a disguise that would pass casual inspection, but wouldn't be recognized by someone who knew her well. The auburn hair, subtly different makeup techniques, colored contacts that turned her hazel eyes blue, and a wardrobe unlike anything in Eliza's closet. Nathan and Valerie were eager for the investment, especially when the terms seemed so favorable. They didn't look too closely at the fine print that gave Horizon significant oversight powers. They were too blinded by the influx of cash and the prestigious name of Meredith Reed behind it. Eliza's first official meeting with them was a test of her acting abilities. She'd prepared meticulously, studying Prometheus's business plan, memorizing financial projections, and practicing a persona that was coolly professional with an edge of intimidation. Ms. Chen, Mr. Morgan, she said, shaking their hands firmly in Meredith's downtown office. Caroline Wells, I'll be your primary contact at Horizon. Nathan had smiled the same smile he used on all women, a blend of charm and confidence. It had stopped working on Eliza years ago, but she pretended to be slightly affected, just as any woman meeting him for the first time might be. Valerie was more reserved, more calculating. We're excited to have Horizon on board. Ms. Reed's reputation speaks for itself. Meredith doesn't invest in just anyone, Eliza replied, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. She sees potential here. My job is to ensure that potential is realized. We've exceeded our initial projections by 12%, Nathan said, sliding a folder across the desk. And we've secured 2 additional major clients since our preliminary meetings. Eliza flipped through the documents, using every ounce of self-control not to react to the casual way he presented information about the business he'd hidden from her. Impressive. But I see your operating expenses are higher than anticipated. A quick glance passed between them. So brief she would have missed it if she hadn't been looking for it. Development costs. Valerie explained smoothly. We've had to scale our infrastructure sooner than expected due to client demand. Eliza made a non-committal sound. She'd already reviewed their books, a condition of Horizon's investment, and knew exactly where the money was going, including the business dinners at luxury hotels and weekend strategy retreats that only the two of them attended. "I'll need weekly updates moving forward," she said. "And I'll be sitting in on key client meetings. Horizon takes a hands-on approach with our portfolio companies." Nathan's smile tightened slightly. "Of course, though we do prefer to maintain our existing client relationships without too much interference." "This isn't interference, Mr. Morgan. It's oversight." Eliza held his gaze until he looked away first. "I'm sure we'll work together beautifully." As they left, she heard Valerie murmur to Nathan, "She's going to be a problem." Eliza smiled to herself. They had no idea. Over the next few months, Eliza lived a double life. At home, she was the supportive wife, accepting Nathan's increasingly thin explanations for his absences and late nights. She maintained the fiction that she believed his company was struggling, requiring his constant attention, while expressing just enough concern about their finances to seem natural without pushing him to confess. As Caroline Wells, she was the exacting investor representative, questioning every decision, reviewing every expense, and gradually inserting herself into more aspects of Prometheus's operations. She scheduled meetings early in the morning when Valerie was least alert, or late in the evening when Nathan was eager to leave, presumably to make excuses to Eliza about working late. She exploited every opportunity to understand their business from the inside out. What she discovered was infuriating and impressive in equal measure. Prometheus was actually a promising company with innovative technology. Nathan and Valerie worked well together professionally. Their skills complemented each other, and they had a genuine vision for the platform they were building. Had they met under different circumstances, had they not betrayed her, Eliza might have been proud of what Nathan was creating. Instead, each success felt like another betrayal, another confirmation that he had found fulfillment without her, with someone else. The most difficult moments were witnessing their intimacy. The inside jokes, the casual touches, the silent communications that come from spending countless hours together. Once, arriving early for a meeting, she found them in Nathan's office, Valerie perched on his desk, his hand on her thigh as they laughed about something. The same laugh he used to share with Eliza. She'd cleared her throat loudly and they'd sprung apart like guilty teenagers. "Am I interrupting?" she'd asked, her Caroline Wells persona firmly in place despite the rage boiling inside her. "Just reviewing the Peterson account?" Nathan had said, adjusting his tie. "Fascinating approach," she'd replied dryly. "I don't recall that technique being covered in business school." As the months passed, Eliza gathered information, bided her time, and slowly, methodically increased Horizon's influence over Prometheus. Additional funding came with additional conditions. Key hires required her approval. Major decisions needed her sign-off. Nathan and Valerie chafed under these restrictions but couldn't argue with the results. Prometheus was growing faster than projected, attracting attention in the industry, and their personal wealth was increasing accordingly. If they had to tolerate the overbearing Caroline Wells to maintain that trajectory, it seemed a reasonable trade-off. Meanwhile, at home, the distance between Eliza and Nathan grew. They were like actors in different plays who happened to share the same stage occasionally. She watched him come home late, distracted, sometimes with the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his clothes. She observed the way he checked his phone when he thought she wasn't looking, the secret smile that would cross his face at certain messages. "We should plan a vacation." She suggested one rare evening when they were both home for dinner. "It's been ages since we've had time together." Nathan looked up from his plate, momentarily startled as if he'd forgotten she was there. "That sounds nice, but this quarter is critical. Maybe in the spring." "You said that last year," she pointed out. He had the grace to look somewhat ashamed. "The business is demanding right now, Liz. You know that." "Actually, I don't know that," she countered, deciding to push slightly. "You barely talk about work anymore. Is everything okay financially? Should I be worried?" No, he said quickly. "Things are going well. We've secured some additional investment." I just don't want to bore you with the details." The lie slid so easily from his lips that she wondered how many others there had been over the years that she'd never detected. "You could never bore me, Nathan," she said softly. "I miss being part of your life." Something flickered in his eyes. Regret? Guilt? Before he reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "I'm sorry I've been distant. It's just temporary, I promise. Once the company is stable," she nodded, accepting the empty promise because Caroline Wells had a board meeting with Prometheus the next morning, and she needed to maintain her cover more than she needed emotional satisfaction from this conversation. Later, lying awake beside his sleeping form, Eliza wondered what she was really trying to accomplish. Was this elaborate scheme really about protecting her financial investment? Or was she prolonging the inevitable because she wasn't ready to accept that her marriage was over? That the man she'd loved for 15 years had constructed an entirely separate life that had no place for her? The truth was more complicated than either explanation. This wasn't just about money, and it wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about power. Nathan had taken her choices away when he lied to her, when he used their joint resources to build something that excluded her. Now she was taking that power back, one board meeting at a time. Tomorrow would be the most important meeting yet. Prometheus was preparing for a second round of funding that would potentially triple its valuation. Horizon, as the primary investor, had considerable influence over this process. Eliza had spent weeks preparing, reviewing every aspect of their operations, identifying weaknesses, formulating questions that would require honest answers rather than the half-truths Nathan and Valerie had become adept at offering. It was time to tighten the noose. The boardroom hummed with anticipation as Eliza, as Caroline Wells, laid out her concerns. "Your projected user. Acquisition costs are optimistic at best, delusional at worst," she said, pointing to a chart displayed on the screen. "And these marketing allocations show a worrying pattern." Nathan shifted uncomfortably. "What pattern is that?" "Inefficiency," Eliza replied coolly. "Or perhaps something more concerning. For instance, these weekend strategy retreats at the Four Seasons. Remarkably expensive for what appear to be two-person meetings." Valerie's spine stiffened. "Our most productive planning happens in distraction-free environments." "I'm sure it does," Eliza agreed, allowing a hint of knowledge to color her tone. "However, Horizon can't continue to support such intimate planning sessions, not when they yield so little documented strategy." The tension in the room thickened. The other board members, 2 minor investors and the company's legal counsel, exchanged glances. "If I could see the detailed agendas and outputs from these retreats," Eliza continued, "perhaps I would better understand their value." Nathan cleared his throat. "We can provide those, but I assure you these meetings are essential to our process." Speaking of process, Eliza shifted topics smoothly. "I'd like to discuss the Peterson account." The Peterson account was Prometheus's largest client, representing nearly 30% of their revenue. Eliza had discovered through careful investigation that Peterson had threatened to pull their business 3 weeks ago due to implementation delays, a fact Nathan and Valerie had concealed from the board. As she detailed the situation, watching the color drain from Nathan's face, she felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. This was her husband, the man she had built a life with, and she was systematically dismantling his carefully constructed house of cards. "How did you know about Peterson's concerns?" Valerie demanded, her composure cracking. "That information wasn't shared with the board." "Precisely the problem, Ms. Chen," Eliza replied. "As major stakeholders, we should have been informed immediately." Nathan intervened, his charm dialed to maximum. "The situation was temporary. We've resolved the issues, and Peterson is now fully satisfied." "That's not what Peterson's CFO told me when I had lunch with him yesterday," Eliza countered, watching Nathan's facade crumble. "He indicated they're still considering moving to a competitor." The meeting deteriorated from there. Other board members began asking pointed questions. The legal counsel looked increasingly concerned. Nathan and Valerie's united front began to show cracks as they offered conflicting explanations for decisions they'd made without proper authorization. By the end of the 3-hour session, Eliza had accomplished what she came for. The board voted to establish an oversight committee, with Caroline Wells as chair, to review all major decisions until confidence in leadership was restored. Effectively, Eliza now controlled the company her husband had built with their money and his mistress. As the meeting broke up, Nathan approached her, his expression a mix of frustration and forced professionalism. "Ms. Wells, could I have a word?" She followed him into his office, maintaining a careful distance. This close, with just the two of them, the risk of him recognizing her increased. "What exactly are you trying to do here?" he demanded once the door closed. "We've met every growth target. The company is succeeding. Why are you undermining our leadership?" Eliza regarded him coolly. "I'm protecting Horizon's investment, Mr. Morgan. Your personal relationship with Ms. Chen has clouded your judgment on several key decisions." He stilled. "My what?" "Please," she scoffed. "The hotel receipts. The weekend retreats. The way you look at each other when you think no one's watching. Horizon doesn't care about your personal arrangements, but when they affect business decisions, that becomes our concern." Nathan's expression hardened. "Our personal lives are irrelevant to this company's success, are they?" she challenged. "Then perhaps you should explain why company funds were used to purchase a bracelet from Tiffany last month." "Was that a business expense, Mr. Morgan?" The bracelet had been a particularly painful discovery. Eliza had found the receipt during her review of expense reports, a $4,500 piece of jewelry logged as client appreciation. The date had been their wedding anniversary. Nathan paled visibly. "That's not I can explain." "Save it," she interrupted. "The Oversight Committee will conduct a full audit. I suggest you prepare accordingly." As she turned to leave, he grabbed her arm. "Wait, we can work something out." "What do you want?" The question hung in the air between them. What did she want? Revenge? Justice? Her marriage back? The answer had evolved over the months of her deception, crystallizing into something clearer than she'd initially understood. "I want what's mine," she said simply, pulling her arm from his grasp. That evening, Eliza arrived home before Nathan, something that had become increasingly common as his work commitments kept him away. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through the photos she'd taken of the board meeting documents. Her phone buzzed with a text from Meredith. "How did it go?" "Phase 1 complete. Oversight committee established. I'm chair. Ready for phase 2? Eliza hesitated. Phase 2 was the reveal. The moment when Nathan and Valerie would discover exactly who had been pulling the strings all these months. She'd planned it meticulously, but now, on the precipice, she felt a flicker of uncertainty. Not about whether they deserved it, they did, but about whether this elaborate revenge would bring her the closure she sought. Before she could respond, she heard Nathan's key in the lock. She quickly closed the messages and switched to a recipe website, slipping back into the role of oblivious wife. "You're home early," she commented as he entered the kitchen, his expression distracted and troubled. "Bad day," he muttered, loosening his tie. He went straight for the scotch, pouring a double measure. "How was yours?" "Productive," she replied truthfully. "The Foundation's annual fundraiser is coming together nicely." He nodded absently, downing half his drink in one swallow. "That's good." She studied him. This man she'd shared everything with for 15 years, now essentially a stranger in their home. "Nathan, we need to talk." He glanced up, wariness crossing his features. "About what?" "About us. About the fact that you're barely here anymore. About whatever is going on with you that you're not telling me." His expression closed off. "It's just work stress, Liz. Nothing for you to worry about." "That's not good enough anymore," she said, her patience finally exhausted. "I've given you months to come clean. I've watched you lie to my face night after night. I've waited for you to remember that we're supposed to be partners." Nathan stared at her, shock replacing the wariness. "What are you talking about?" "I know, Nathan." The words were both a relief and a knife twist to say aloud. I know about Valerie. I know about Prometheus. I know everything. He set his glass down slowly, his face draining of color. Eliza— Don't, she cut him off. Don't insult me with more lies. A tense silence filled the kitchen. Finally, Nathan sighed, his shoulders slumping in defeat. How long have you known? Long enough, she replied, unwilling to reveal the full extent yet. Why, Nathan? Was I not enough? Did our life together mean so little? It wasn't about you, he said, the words so predictable she almost laughed. Valerie and I— it just happened. We were working together, long hours, high pressure. Spare me the cliches, she interrupted. That doesn't explain why you hid the entire company from me. Why you used our savings, my money too, without telling me the truth. He had the grace to look ashamed. I knew you wouldn't approve. Not of Valerie being involved. And we needed the funding to get started, so you lied. You stole from me. You built a whole separate life. I was going to tell you, he insisted. Once the company was stable, once we'd paid back the initial investment. When? She demanded. After you'd spent our 15th anniversary buying jewelry for her? After you'd moved on to the next phase of your new life? When exactly were you planning to let me know I didn't matter anymore? Nathan reached for her, but she stepped back. Liz, you matter. You've always mattered. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. Yes, she agreed coldly. You did. He seemed to gather himself, switching to damage control mode. We can work through this. I'll end things with Valerie. I'll be more transparent about the business. We can go to counseling. The offer was so inadequate, so pathetically late, that Eliza felt a surge of something between pity and contempt. That won't be necessary. Nathan, please don't give up on us, he pleaded. 15 years, Liz. That has to count for something. It counted for nothing when you were scheduling strategy retreats at luxury hotels, she countered. It counted for nothing when you depleted our accounts to fund your venture with her. It counted for nothing when you lied to my face every single day. Nathan's expression hardened slightly. So that's it? You're just walking away? No, Eliza said, a cold smile forming. I'm not walking away at all. In fact, I'm taking a much more active role. Confusion crossed his face. What do you mean? She picked up her phone and sent a quick text to Meredith, proceeding with Phase 2. Then she turned back to Nathan. I have a board meeting to prepare for tomorrow. The Oversight Committee is conducting its first review of Prometheus's operations. His confusion deepened. What are you talking about? Eliza reached up and removed her colored contacts, meeting his gaze with her natural hazel eyes. Hello, Nathan. Caroline Wells sends her regards. The recognition that dawned on Nathan's face would have been comical under different circumstances. The widening eyes, the slack jaw, the rapid succession of emotions as he processed the implications. You're Caroline Wells? He stammered. That's not possible. And yet, Eliza replied, reaching for her wine glass. For 6 months, I've been sitting across from you in board meetings. I've been reviewing your expenses, questioning your decisions, and gradually taking control of the company you built with our money and your mistress. Nathan's shock gave way to anger. This is insane. You've been spying on me? Creating a fake identity? Do you have any idea how unhinged that is? Almost as unhinged as embezzling from your wife to fund a business with your lover, she countered evenly. Almost as unhinged as buying another woman jewelry on your wedding anniversary using company funds. You had no right. I had every right. Eliza cut him off, her voice steely. It was my money too, Nathan. My life you were dismantling while you built a new one with her. He raked a hand through his hair, pacing the kitchen. So what now? This elaborate revenge scheme? What's the end game? Humiliating me? Destroying the company? The company is doing quite well under my oversight, she replied. In fact, better than it was under your exclusive management. As for the end game, she sipped her wine. That depends on you and Valerie. What does that mean? It means you have choices to make. Eliza set down her glass. Option 1. You both resign. I'll ensure you receive fair compensation for your contributions, but Prometheus continues under new leadership. Nathan's jaw tightened. And option 2? You stay on, but with clear boundaries. professional boundaries. The personal relationship ends, the misuse of company funds stops, and you both answer to the oversight committee, to me, for the foreseeable future. He stared at her in disbelief. You can't seriously expect to continue this charade. Once I tell Valerie, once the board finds out, the board works for Horizon Capital, which is effectively me, Eliza interrupted. As for Valerie, yes, that conversation will be interesting. Especially when she learns that every decision she thought she was making independently has been manipulated by her lover's wife. This is blackmail, Nathan said, his voice rising. No, Eliza corrected. This is consequences. Something you've managed to avoid for quite some time. They stood facing each other across the kitchen island, 15 years of marriage between them reduced to a business negotiation. Nathan's expression cycled through anger, fear, calculation, and finally, a reluctant respect. You planned all of this, he said slowly. From the moment you found out, she didn't deny it. I learned from the best, Nathan. You taught me that sometimes the long game is the only one worth playing. A humorless laugh escaped him. And to think I always saw you as the straightforward one in our relationship. People show you what they need you to see, she replied. Another lesson I learned from you. The truth hung between them, heavy with implications for their shared past and separate futures. Whatever happened next, nothing would be the same. The pretense had been stripped away, leaving only the harsh reality of what they'd become to each other. I need time to think, Nathan finally said. This is a lot to process. Take all the time you need, Eliza replied, gathering her things. I'll be staying at the Four Seasons tonight. I hear it's excellent for strategy sessions. The next morning, Eliza sat in the Prometheus boardroom, reviewing documents for the Oversight Committee meeting. She'd barely slept, the confrontation with Nathan replaying in her mind. She'd imagined this moment for months, plotted every detail of her revenge, but the hollow victory left her more exhausted than exhilarated. The door opened, and Valerie entered alone, her expression tightly controlled. Ms. Chen, Eliza greeted her, maintaining the Caroline Wells persona out of habit. You're early. I wanted to speak with you privately, Valerie said, taking a seat across from her. About Nathan. Eliza's pulse quickened. Had Nathan already told her? Was this confrontation happening sooner than she'd anticipated? What about Mr. Morgan? She asked carefully. Valerie hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. Our relationship isn't purely professional. I assume you've figured that out by now? It was hardly a well-kept secret, Eliza replied dryly. What you may not know is that Nathan is married. Valerie leaned forward, her expression earnest. I've been pushing him to come clean with his wife, to make a choice. But he keeps stalling. The absurdity of the situation, Valerie confiding in her about Nathan's marriage, was almost too much to bear. And why are you telling me this? Because I need allies on the board, Valerie explained. Nathan's indecision is affecting the company. He's distracted, making questionable decisions. The Peterson situation was his oversight, not mine. Eliza studied the woman across from her. Younger, beautiful, ambitious. The woman who had slept with her husband, helped spend their money, and was now throwing Nathan under the bus to save herself. So you're saying I should support you over him in board decisions, Eliza clarified. Because of his personal failings? I'm saying the company would be better served with clear leadership, Valerie replied. Nathan's conflict is becoming a liability. Eliza nodded slowly, making a show of considering this information. I appreciate your candor, Ms. Chen, though I wonder how Nathan's wife might feel about all this. Valerie had the grace to look somewhat uncomfortable. That's between Nathan and her. My concern is Prometheus, is it? Eliza asked, unable to resist pushing. And not the bracelet he bought you with company funds? Not the weekend retreats charged to the corporate account? Valerie paled slightly. Those expenses were approved by Nathan, Eliza finished for her. Convenient arrangement, wouldn't you say? Before Valerie could respond, the door opened again and Nathan entered. He stopped abruptly when he saw them together, his gaze darting between the two women. Am I interrupting? he asked, his voice tight. Ms. Chen was just sharing some concerns about company leadership, Eliza replied smoothly. Very illuminating. The tension in the room was palpable as Nathan took a seat, maintaining as much distance as possible between himself and both women. Other board members began filtering in, oblivious to the undercurrents. As the meeting commenced, Eliza watched Nathan and Valerie carefully. They sat stiffly, avoiding eye contact with each other, their usual synchronized presentations now awkward and disjointed. Whatever conversation they'd had after her revelation to Nathan, it had clearly fractured their united front. When the time came for the Oversight Committee's recommendations, Eliza spoke clearly and decisively. After reviewing operations, I'm recommending a leadership restructuring. Mr. Morgan will transition to chairman, focusing on client relationships and strategic vision. Ms. Chen will continue as COO, reporting directly to a new CEO to be appointed by the board. The announcement sent ripples through the room. Nathan's jaw clenched, while Valerie's expression flickered between surprise and calculation. Neither of them had expected this particular move. This decision, Eliza continued, is based on performance metrics and operational efficiency, not personal considerations. Prometheus has enormous potential that can best be realized with more specialized leadership roles. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of procedural votes and technical discussions. When it adjourned, Eliza gathered her materials calmly, aware of Nathan watching her from across the room. Ms. Wells, he said as others filed out. A word? She nodded, following him into his office, the same office where she'd seen him with Valerie months ago, the memory still sharp. He closed the door and turned to face her. Gone was the shocked, defensive man from last night, replaced by someone more measured, more calculating. Impressive move, he said. Separating us professionally while diminishing both our roles. Business decision, she replied. Nothing personal, Nathan laughed humorlessly. Everything about this is personal, Eliza. Or should I still call you Caroline here? Eliza is fine. The charade ends today. The board will be informed that Caroline Wells is transitioning to another position, and my actual identity will be revealed as the New Horizon representative. He nodded, processing this. And Valerie? When will you tell her? That depends, Eliza said. What did you tell her after our conversation last night? Nathan's expression tightened. That things between us need to change? That the relationship was affecting our professional judgment? But not that your wife has been pulling the strings at Prometheus for 6 months? No, he admitted. Not yet, Eliza considered this. Interesting. Why protect me? I'm not protecting you, he countered. I'm protecting myself. Do you have any idea how pathetic it makes me look that my wife infiltrated my company and I never noticed? The admission surprised her. In all her planning, she hadn't considered how Nathan's pride might factor into the aftermath. It was almost refreshing, this small moment of honesty between them after so much deception. So what happens now? He asked. With us, I mean, not the company. It was the question she'd been avoiding, focusing instead on the mechanics of her revenge rather than its emotional aftermath. What did happen now? The marriage she'd been fighting to save, or at least to end on her terms, was irrevocably damaged. The trust was gone. The love had been corroded by months of lies on both sides. I don't know, she admitted. I didn't plan past this point. Nathan nodded, accepting this. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for everything. For betraying you, for lying, for using our money. You deserved better. The apology so long awaited felt both essential and insufficient. Yes, I did. We can't go back, he said quietly. Too much has happened. No, she agreed. We can't. They stood in silence, the weight of 15 years and 6 months of deception between them. Finally, Nathan spoke again. The company, though, Prometheus. It's good, Eliza. It has value. Real potential, I know, she acknowledged. That's why I invested in it. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Always the pragmatist. Someone had to be. Another silence, less tense than before. Then Nathan asked, Will you tell Valerie? Or should I? Eliza considered the question. Her initial plan had included a dramatic reveal, watching Valerie's face as she realized who Caroline Wells really was. But now, standing in the aftermath of her scheme, the desire for that final twist of the knife had diminished. You tell her, she decided. It should come from you. He nodded, relief evident in his expression. Thank you. Don't thank me, she replied. This isn't a kindness. It's just enough. The game is over, Nathan. We all lost. 3 months later, Eliza sat in her office at the Prometheus headquarters, reviewing quarterly projections. The transition had been smoother than expected. The board had accepted the leadership restructuring. Nathan had settled into his role as chairman with minimal resistance. And Valerie, after an initial period of shock and anger when she learned the truth, had adapted to the new hierarchy with pragmatic efficiency. The personal fallout had been messier. Nathan had moved out of their house the day after their confrontation, filing for divorce a week later. The proceedings were amicable, all things considered, both of them too emotionally exhausted for further battles. The financial settlement was straightforward, given Eliza's new position at Prometheus ensuring her economic security. A knock at her door pulled her from her thoughts. Valerie stood in the doorway, a tablet in hand. The Peterson contract renewal came through, she said, her tone professionally neutral. The changes you suggested to the implementation timeline were accepted. Good, Eliza replied. And the new developer team? Onboarding next week. Nathan's interviewing the final candidate tomorrow. Their interactions had evolved into this strange, formal dance, two women bound together by business necessity and a shared history with the same man, neither willing to acknowledge the emotional undercurrents. Valerie hesitated, then stepped further into the office. Can I ask you something? Not about work. Eliza gestured to the chair across from her desk. Go ahead. Why did you do it this way? Valerie asked, remaining standing. You could have confronted Nathan immediately. You could have filed for divorce, taken half of everything in court. Why the elaborate scheme? It was a question Eliza had asked herself many times over the past months. The answer had evolved as her anger cooled, replaced by a clearer understanding of her own motivations. It wasn't just about the money, she said finally, or even about the betrayal. It was about having choices taken away from me. Nathan decided unilaterally to use our resources for something that excluded me. He rebuilt his life without giving me the opportunity to be part of it or to make my own plans. She met Valerie's gaze directly. I needed to take that control back, to prove, maybe just to myself, that I wasn't powerless in my own life. Valerie nodded slowly. I can understand that. Not approve necessarily, but understand. I don't need your approval, Eliza replied without rancor. Just your professional cooperation. You have that, Valerie assured her. Whatever happened between Nathan and me, whatever happened between you and him, Prometheus is worth protecting. On that point, at least, they were in agreement. The company they'd both invested in, Eliza with her money, Valerie with her expertise, had grown into something valuable, something with a future beyond the messy personal entanglements of its founders. After Valerie left, Eliza turned to the window, gazing out at the city skyline. The revenge she'd so meticulously planned had brought her not joy but perspective. She'd discovered strengths she hadn't known she possessed, capabilities that had lain dormant during her years as Nathan's wife. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Nathan. Peterson dinner tomorrow night. Both of us should be there, she typed back. I'll be there. Professional attire only. His response came quickly. Understood, CEO. The title still felt strange. Chief Executive Officer of Prometheus Digital Solutions. Not what she'd imagined for herself when she first discovered Nathan's betrayal. Not what she'd planned when she crafted her elaborate revenge. But perhaps, in the end, something more fitting than the hollow victory she'd initially sought. She wasn't just the betrayed wife anymore. She wasn't just the secret puppet master. She was Eliza Morgan, CEO, navigating a future she'd reclaimed for herself. One decision, one board meeting, one day at a time. The silent partner had found her voice.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.